Hello, everybody. We're here again. Will Casterlow here, CEO and founder of Triad Cyber Solutions. Hey, I got another great one here for you today. And I'm so glad for you all to meet and be here with us today. This is week 3 of our series about we're talking about today about budgeting, how to budget, go from budgeting to protection. All this month, this is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and what we've been talking about is budgeting for next year and the rest of this year's expenses for IT services. So along with that, the last couple of weeks, we had weekly series leading up to each week talking about different topics. Well, again, thank you again for joining us. Today, we're talking about budget, going from budget to protection, and how to build a cost-effective and cybersecurity strategy. Well, let's go ahead and get right on into this because, again, I appreciate your time. I value your time. And, again, I know you might be just taking a quick little break to just look at this series or just having a little late lunch. So I appreciate that time you spending here with us. So let's go ahead and go on with the show. Well, we want to talk about, hey, what is cost-effective cybersecurity strategy? Basically, when we're talking about cost effectiveness, right, we're talking about being prepared, and we're talking about finding out information that we may or may not know. So when we're doing that, how are we making sure we know what we need? Well, there are certain tools, there are certain trainings, there are certain systems. The list goes on and on. So when we're trying to figure out what we really need, the number one thing to do is to get and find an expert, right? Find an expert that can help you do these things. And with us, we can be that expert for you where we can come and have a conversation and let's talk about what this piece looks like all together, okay? The next thing is we're going to be looking at is how can you identifying which cybersecurity strategy will be cost effective for you. Many people will come out and say, oh, you need this, you need that, you need to do this, you need to do that, right? But truth be told, if you don't know, the person possibly don't know, how do we know what we need? How do we know if we have enough? How do we know if we are just overdoing it? Well, when you get a cybersecurity expert like us, involved where we can sit down and have a conversation and get to know what your whole empire looks like, right? What we do is we'll do a cybersecurity risk assessment. And with that cybersecurity risk assessment, it helps us identify what is needed for your organization to determine what is enough and how it can be cost effective. But without that cybersecurity risk assessment, you're not going to be able to have a cost-effective solution. There are a lot of people out here that will go on and say, well, I know I need to do something with passwords. I know I need to do something with training, or we need antivirus. But do you really know what you really need? Because even though those pieces that I just stated, to a degree, yes, you do need those, but it's so much more and there's so many other things that you have to worry about besides that. So the best thing to do is find a cybersecurity expert like us who can help facilitate this piece for you. Okay. My next thing is we're looking at what type of budget is both protective and cost effective. So when we're talking about being protected, we have critical areas in your business. This can be data encryption, hardware and software. This can be how your employees or even you search and find the things on the web, how you're housing all your passwords. The list goes on, right? So what we got to do is look at what type of preventative measures do we need to put in place. What do you currently have in place? Well, with your current solution, does that need to be tweaked? Do we need to add? Do we need to just totally change it all together? These are all pieces we need to make sure we're looking at. And then when it comes to your data, you want to make sure you're HIPAA compliant. You want to make sure you're PII compliant, you're PCI compliant if you take credit cards. You also want to make sure you are following the FTC safeguard rules. Folks, that's very, very important. Following the needs and the guidelines and the regulatory compliances that are coming by the FTC safeguard rules, it's imperative. And you must, and I mean, again, you must include that when doing your budget for next year. I've had a company this year where they changed companies, they changed and got another IT person. But the number one thing they didn't do, they found another company, and whether the person was cheaper or whatever, oh yeah, I know, I trust that company. But what they failed to do is put them in their budget. So what they did is allow another company just to come in to take over from a previous company, but they didn't put a budget together. There's no budget to allow and know what they need to spend, how much they need to spend, and what they need to upgrade. There's no plan. And because there wasn't a cybersecurity risk assessment done, because no one sat down to get an idea where they are, where we can align their business goals, they're going to have a hard time. So I say this. This is the reason why we're having this session like we're having. I'm having this free educational session talking about budgeting. It's very, very important, folks. Please don't go without trying to figure out a budget, or give us a call. Let's sit down. Let's have an appointment. Let's talk about what this looks like for you. Okay? The next thing is, what should a cost-effective cybersecurity strategy look like? Now, we were talking about some things already. I was talking about data encryption, data files, software, hardware. I talked about a cybersecurity risk assessment. The cybersecurity risk assessment is your number one thing to do, period. If you don't do anything else, if you don't create a budget, if you don't look at your hardware and the software, if you don't do anything else, you need to make sure you have conducted a cybersecurity risk assessment. Not a penetration testing, not someone coming in, looking and eyeballing your network and saying, oh yeah, you guys got to replace the router, you need to update your PCs. None of that. You need a cybersecurity risk assessment. That has to be done yesterday. Okay? The other thing is just making sure you're totally in compliance. And I listed some of those things: PII, HIPAA, PCI, if you're doing credit cards, CMMC, but the list goes on. There's so many compliances out there, right? For law firms, for you law firm people, making sure your ABA is not being affected. For your CPAs, making sure your WISP report, is your WISP report done? Has it been updated? Many of you have a WISP report, but it has not been updated. So you got to make sure your company is constantly updating your risk report to make sure it's meeting the guidelines every single year, not just the first time, not just last year or 2 years ago when you first got your notice. It needs to be done every single year. Is your current person or IT person doing this for you right now? Do they have an incident response program? The incident response plan tells you and helps you allow, when something does happen, it can rectify the situation. It can alert. It can shut down. It can make sure that things doesn't continue to spread and go out. So you got to make sure these things are done. And if you don't, again, when all fails, go back. You need to call us. We can conduct a cybersecurity risk assessment for you. Okay? But the cybersecurity risk assessment is your number one thing. So any takeaway you get from this today, we're talking about going from budgeting to actual protection. Cybersecurity risk assessment is the first thing you need to do, from the budget to protection, because then once we get that cybersecurity risk assessment, then we can put that comprehensive plan together to go from budget to protection, say, hey, these are the things we need to do to be and get protected. That's what it is. Again, This month is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, along with Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we have two very important pieces that I'm sharing and being a part of this meeting, this session here today. Okay. So again, don't forget, Cybersecurity Awareness Month is just not something that we just make up and then it's boom and it's there. We have to take pride in it. We have to take that seriously. The question I have for you is, what are you doing for cybersecurity? What are you doing to make sure your business has been updated this year? You want all year round. This is month 10, folks. We have 2 more months in a year. We're down to 2.5 months. And then we're going to be 2025 is going to be knocking on the door. What have you done to your business to make sure that you are and have updated your cybersecurity business? What have you done? So, with being that, I want to again thank you all for joining us for this quick little session. A quick informational session, just enough. I want you to be able to think and remember what I just talked about. Okay? We're talking about budgeting for hardware, software. I mean, the list goes on. Making sure you're compliant, making sure that you are ready for the end of the year. CPAs, accountants, you got tax season. I know you just, actually 2 or 3 days ago, I know you just ended your tax extension deadlines. So I know those tax extension deadlines was just done maybe yesterday or 2 days ago. Well, now you have another 2 months or so, 2.5 months to kind of like breathe. January comes, January's been knocking on the door. Now you're going to be getting those W-2s and 1099s ready, right? Are you ready for that? Don't wait till you get into tax season. And then when you start getting in tax season, you start ramping up. And now all of a sudden something happens to your machine. Something happens going on with your printer. Something's going on with your network. This is the time to look at all those things. Give us a call. Our information is right here on the screen. Give us a call, 336-558-4660. There's our email address right there. Give us a call, email us, and let us know what we can do and how we can help. We want to be of service to you, okay? And this is how we can help you. But it doesn't start until you decide to either pick up that phone or send us a quick email, or there's a QR code, which I apologize, not there, but it should be a QR code where you can scan and click on that meeting, okay, and schedule that meeting. Now, make sure you stay tuned. Next week is our last and final series talking about budgeting, where we're speaking about how to avoid the last minute crunch. So avoiding the last minute crunch is very, very imperative. We don't want to wait till the last minute. I just spoke about that maybe 2 minutes ago. Not waiting till the last minute to update all your processes, to get all your processes checked out before it's time to hit and do the 1099s and the W-2s. Those are information. And then tax season comes. So you want to make sure all these pieces are in and done and set up for you. Okay? Well, again, I want to thank you all for joining me today, joining us here for just another exciting week on our web episode of talking about budgeting and going from budgeting to protection. Okay? Going from budgeting to protection is very imperative. But look, thank y'all very much. My time is up. Until next week, until we're talking about how to avoid that last minute crunch, give us a call. We can help you. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.